And like I said before, Hornets, here we are again, part 3. And just in case you don't have your Ready workbook out, please make sure you get that out now. And we are opening it up to page 71. So if you need to pause me, but I'm going to keep going. And once again, if you need to pause me to keep up, then pause me. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'd much rather you have all your stuff written in your workbook because it's important. If I write it down, you write it down. So the very first thing that we're doing is we want to make sure we go back and we look at what we did in our last video, and we are still doing all the same stuff. We are still summarizing literary text. So we want to make sure we write that at the top of our page, just like we have been. All right, so let's go back to it. And we are summarizing literary text. And summarizing, we want to remember that means we want to keep it brief. We want to retell brief. We want to keep it short. And just in case we haven't gone over it, just as a reminder, guys, literary means fiction, drama, poetry, folklore, and narrative nonfiction. Okay? And that's just a reminder of what some of that stuff is. And right now we're concentrating on the folklore aspect of literary. So we also want to make sure we remember that we want to make, when we're summarizing, we are keeping it clean with soap, which means we're going to keep it short. We're going to make sure it is objective, that it is accurate, and that it is paraphrased. Remember, short means that we're going to make sure, as I said already, it is brief. Objective means no opinions or judgments. Accurate means we're going to make sure we go in chronological order. And paraphrase means we're going to put it in your own words. Now, to read our directions, it tells us to continue, which that lets us know, guys, that this is from page 70 and we're on page 71. And if we're going to continue, we want to make sure where we left off with paragraph 3. So this is going to be paragraph 4, and this is going to be paragraph number 5. So we're going to continue reading about Glooscap and the Wesses, and we're going to use the close reading and the hint that the question to help us come up with the answer. So the very first thing we want to look at is our close reading. And our instructions on it, well, it's asking us what are the most important events, and that's the stuff that we normally star, that occur in this part of the text. We're going to underline 2 or more details that describe the way the Oasis respond. That's our key word to Glooscap's actions. All right, so I'm going to read. And once again, as I'm reading, you want to pay attention to your characters and the events that the characters are doing. And we're making sure we keep up with how the how the Oasis responds to Glooscap. In an uncontrollable fury, Glooscap screamed at the Oasis that he alone was the mightiest warrior. This time, the Oasis did respond. It opened its throat and let out a terrible, heartbroken wail. Gloosclap covered his ears, but the creature's howl split his skull. He asked it to stop crying, but it would not. He danced a funny dance, sang a song, and made a face, but it wasn't until Gloosclap held the Wesses that the creature was finally appeased. Subdued, the baby cooed goo at his father, for son and father they were. And forever after, when a baby coos goo goo at his father, the Wessis remembers his victory over Glooscap. All right, so what did you underline? Well, first let's check off a couple of things. Once again, we have our character. We've got Gloosclap and we've got the Wessis. We're still in the house. Our setting is the same. But this time, our big event that we're looking for is that response. And there's a keyword we hear right here where it says the Wesses did respond. So I'm going to give you a second to see what you underlined. I underlined 3 things, but you could only, if it's okay if you only underline 2. All right, so hopefully if you needed to pause the video and underline your 2 or 3 things, but I'm going to go ahead and go on because I underlined it opened its throat and let out a terrible, heartbroken wail. So this Wessis is crying. It is screaming. And that is what we want to make sure that we get out of this part. And our next detail that I have that it didn't matter what Gloosclap did, the baby Wessis would not stop. And the other thing that he did when he responds to Gloosclap's action is subdued. The baby cooed goo at his father, and that's only because he held the Wessis. That the Wessis did those that it finally calmed down. All right. So when it comes to summarizing this, we want to make sure that when we get to the end and we get to the question that we're looking at no opinion and no judgment. And we want to make sure that we're not including stuff that we think. We want to make sure that it's there in the text. So we're going to come over and look at our question. And once again, it told us to read the hint. And it says to eliminate, which means get rid of, any choices that make a judgment are inaccurate or vague. So judgments, inaccurate or vague. And vague means unclear. So my question says, which of the following choices is the most accurate summary of the story ending? All right. So we were looking for the most accurate summary of the story ending. And remember, accurate means that we're looking to make sure it is in chronological order, because we want to make sure the events of our story take place. And that we're also looking to make sure that it's a summary, which means it is going to be brief again, guys, and have no opinion. So, A, Gloosclap finally figures out how the Wessis is his. Excuse me, I'm going to repeat that again. Gloosclap finally figures out that the Wessis is his son. He may have been a mighty warrior, but he wasn't very smart. Okay. Well, the first part of that, it seems very true. He figures out that it's his son. But the second part says he may have been a mighty warrior. Every year I have kids that tell me the word mighty is a judgment word. Technically, yes, but if we go back and look here at our very first paragraph, we have the word mightiest right there. And mightiest is just another way of saying mighty. So it's just giving me, instead of mightier, mightiest, it's giving me that oh my goodness, superlative. Bad English teacher. So if the text is telling me he's mighty, is it a judgment word then? No. it's not. If the text is telling me he's mighty, then I'm not making a judgment. The text already said that. The second part of that sentence says, but he wasn't very smart. This, guys, right here, is a judgment. It's an opinion. There's nothing in the text that actually makes me think, or that actually says he isn't very smart. So because it's got that judgment in there, we can't use that as an answer. So we're going to mark that one out. B, the mighty Gloosclap is unable to defeat the crying baby Wessis. This victory is remembered every time a baby coos at its father. Well, it has that word mighty in there again, but we already said that that's okay because the text says he is the mightiest. And that is true. He is unable to defeat the baby. And then it's also given us a little bit of that theme. This victory is remembered every time a baby coos at its father. And at the very end, it tells us that. So are we making a judgment or any inaccurate information right now? No, we're not. So I'm just going to put a question mark by this one because we're not sure if that's the answer. C, the wife's warning that Gloosclap would suffer proves to be wrong. Gloosclap ends up enjoying the time he spends with his son. Well, this right here proves to be wrong. This is inaccurate because it's not just dealing with time right there. It's also not in the story. We have no clue what she said. So we're just guessing. Or that it tells us that she was wrong and that the wife's warning was that she was wrong. And also, this right here, that Gloosclap ends up enjoying the time he spends with his son. Well, there's also, that is inaccurate. It is not in the story either. It never actually tells us that. So that is inaccurate. We're making a judgment that is not right. So C cannot be the answer. D says, although Gloosclap asks the Wesses to stop crying, it refuses to do so. Even dancing, singing, and making a face doesn't work. This is all true, but it's leaving out the end of the story. This is a great detail. But where is the ending? It doesn't give me that last final bit about how the baby cooing at its father. So this one is not our answer, which means our best answer is B. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go look at our bottom part where it says show your thinking. And it wants you to explain why one other answer choice is not an accurate summary of the story ending. So I'm going to let you pause the video and go ahead and fill that in. We kind of already did that by walking through A, B, and D. A, C, and D. All right. I'm assuming you're playing the video again. And I'm going to go ahead and write in my answer. And mine is answer. I'm doing a little bit of the racist strategy, guys, where I restate my prompt and I answer the question. Okay. So I'm not citing evidence right now and I'm not explaining evidence and I'm not coming up with a summary statement, but I do want to make sure I'm restating my prompt and answering it. So answer choice D is not an accurate summary. Sorry, guys. Summary.
Copyright Curriculum Associates. Copying is not permitted. 69L8 Summarizing Literary Texts Part 1 Introduction Theme Myths and Legends Summarized.
Okay, interesting. Hit certain things on the bottom and so answer choice D is not an accurate summary of the stories, that's supposed to be an apostrophe, the stories ending because it leaves out the last event. Because it leaves out the last event of the baby stopping its crying. Did I do it again? Of the baby stopping its crying, as well as not including the theme. Period. Okay? So, yes, in my perfect world, next I'd have you with the partner take turns accurately and objectively summarizing the entire legend in your own words. But instead, I'm going to see if you can try to do it on your own. Just keep in mind, if it helps, to use that shortcut, and it's that when and where. Okay. And then somebody wants something, but that's our conflict. Something happens and they're not going to get it. And then you end up with so. That's our what happens after the conflict leading toward the resolution. And then we have our then / theme for the end of your summary. So to tell me what you learned or what the main character learned. And you can use that to help you organize your thoughts for the entire story. So I hope y'all have enjoyed the legend of Glooscap and the Oasis. And for our next one, we get into Beowulf and Grendel, and I'm looking forward to it. If you have any questions, please ask, guys. Bye.